my list of the top 5 most underrated NBA players in the league. These are 5 unsung heroes who I believe contribute to their team's winning just as much as the household names do, but operate in ways that the box scores or the media will never do justice. Also, quick disclaimer, my list is not in any order. Being the unfamiliar face in a star-studded starting lineup, Daniel Theis often gets left out of the limelight. But don't be fooled, Theis is just as important as any other player on the Boston Celtics. Standing at a mere 6'8", Theis doesn't seem like a traditional center at first, nor does he seem like a capable rim protector. However, Theis' lighter build gives him an advantage in guarding the pick and roll and switching onto the perimeter, which are both crucial areas of defensive emphasis in today's NBA. And in protecting the paint, Theis has mightily improved his ability to stay vertical during contests. For reference, opponents are shooting 6% worse within 6 feet of the basket when guarded by Theis. Because of Theis' defensive versatility, and because Brad Stevens rarely plays multiple big men on the floor at the same time, the Celtics rely on Theis a lot for defense. Theis not only leads the Celtics in shots contested, but he ranks 9th in the entire NBA in shots contested per 48 minutes, amongst players who have played at least 1,000 minutes. Catch-all advanced metrics have recognized Theis' impressive defensive contributions. 538's Raptor ranks Theis as the second best defender on the Celtics, behind Marcus Smart, and both Jacob Goldstein's PIPM and ESPN's RPM rank Theis as the best defender on the Celtics. With the Celtics ranking as the 4th best defense in the league, being considered the best defender on that team is very noteworthy. On offense, Daniel Theis' biggest contribution isn't his scoring, but his screening. Theis has developed an amazing synergy with emerging star Jason Tatum in a Brad Stevens designed seal pick and roll. Watch here as Theis seals the help defender away from Tatum as Tatum drives to the rim. Theis is 7th in the entire league in screen assists per 48 minutes, helping the Celtics rank as the 2nd most efficient team in pick and roll ball handler plays. And when Theis has been asked to score, he's done so with efficiency. He's shooting a career-high 62.9% true shooting percentage, and he can both space the floor as a spot-up shooter and catch lobs as a roll man. If I'm being honest, about half of the Toronto Raptors roster deserves to be on this list. They have so many high-value players that are rarely mentioned by the media, like Terrence Davis, OG Anunoby, and Chris Boucher. But for this video, I'm gonna roll with Norman Powell. I'm not sure if anyone really realizes this, but Norman Powell is having a near 50-40-90 season. Powell is shooting 50.2% from the field, 39.8% from 3, and 83.8% from the line. And he's doing this all on decent volume, taking 11.7 shots per game. At just 6'3", Powell is extremely quick driving downhill. He can get by his man with ease, and his 215-pound frame helps him maintain composure when going up with the taller trees. Not only can Powell create his own shot off the dribble, but he excels in the catch and shoot, as he's shooting 43% off catch and shoot threes. To complete the package, Powell's elite agility and finishing ability allows him to thrive in the open floor. Amongst players with at least 3 fast break possessions per game, Powell is 4th in effective field goal percentage, behind Davis Bertans, LeBron, and Jaylen Brown. This season, Norman Powell has figured out how to put all these skills together and is averaging a career-high 16.4 points per game. While Powell is far from being the best defender on his team, most catch-all advanced metrics have him as no better, yet no worse than a neutral defender. Although, it's important to keep in mind that most catch-all stats can be kinda noisy, and Norman Powell likely benefits from playing alongside other great defenders and playing under a great defensive coach in Nick Nurse. But despite his average defense, he still has active hands and plays the passing lanes very well, averaging 2.4 deflections per game and 1.3 steals per game. During the first 2 months of the season, the Minnesota Timberwolves ranked as the 9th worst defense in the NBA. And when Karl Anthony Towns succumbed to injury from mid-December to mid-January, it seemed like things could only get worse. But surprisingly, the Timberwolves' defensive rating jumped up to 3rd best in the league in that span. Most people pointed at KAT's lackluster perimeter and off-ball defense as the reason why Minnesota's defense experienced such a polar shift in his absence. But I think almost equally as important is the player who stepped up in his place. In the month that KAT missed, Gorgui Dieng's minutes doubled, and that had an undeniably huge impact on the team. 538's Raptor has Gorgui Dieng as the 2nd best defender in the entire NBA, behind Rudy Gobert. That by itself should say enough, but if you still aren't convinced, the Timberwolves were 9.5 points per 100 possessions better on defense with Dieng on the court. Gorgie's mobility and leaping ability makes his presence felt everywhere. Even if he's on the weak side, no shot in the paint is safe against him. This season with Minnesota, opponents shot 5.9% worse within 6 feet when guarded by Dieng. And even outside of the paint, Dieng instills his defensive prowess on opponents, holding them to 3.2% worse shooting outside of 15 feet from the basket, which is a rare feat for a near 7-footer. And thanks to his 7'4" wingspan, Gorgui ranks 8th in the NBA in pass deflections per 48 minutes, which again is another rare feat since guards and wings normally dominate the leaderboards for pass deflections. Gorgui Dieng's size, length, and mobility has made him nearly a perfect defensive center in today's NBA. While most of his merits come from his defense, on offense, Gorgui Dieng is capable of putting the ball in the basket from 3, from mid-range, and at the rim. He can shoot the 3 ball at a league average clip, and he ranks in the 77th percentile in pick-and-roll scoring as the roll man. Gorgui Dieng knows his role in offense, doesn't overstep his boundaries, and executes with efficiency. Before suffering a severe sprain and bone contusion in his left knee, Jonathan Isaac's performance on the season was definitely worth some consideration for Defensive Player of the Year, and maybe even Most Improved Player of the Year. Unfortunately, by playing for the 8-seed small market Magic, Isaac probably wouldn't have received many votes in either category, but that doesn't take away from what he's accomplished this season. Jonathan Isaac has finally reached his potential as a lockdown defender, both on the perimeter and in the paint. He has the mobility and quickness to match up with quicker guards, and the height and length to go toe-to-toe against larger forwards. To quantify Isaac's defensive versatility, he was one of 8 NBA players in the 1+ steals and 1+ blocks club this season. In fact, if you add steals and blocks together, Isaac led the club with a combined 4.0. Opponents are shooting 4.3% worse when guarded by Isaac, and an unbelievable 10.2% worse within 6 feet of the basket, which is remarkable for a thin-framed player who weighs just 210 pounds. Isaac uses his 7'1" wingspan and well-timed jumps to be a menace in the paint, especially as a weak-side helper. And his lightning-quick hands and incredible hand-eye coordination allows him to prevent opponents from even getting shots up in the first place. When Isaac was healthy, the Magic had a defensive rating of 106.3. Since his injury, the Magic's defensive rating has slipped to 111.3. Isaac could literally be the Defensive Player of the Year as soon as next season, which is why I'm so surprised that his rise to the top is going so unnoticed. Jonathan Isaac's offensive game is still far behind his defense, but he's made noticeable strides since his rookie season. For the first time in his career, he's averaging over double-digit points. He seems more aggressive as a scorer as he's taken more shots and free throws per game this season, and he's converting these shots on a career high, yet still below league average 54.2% true shooting. While I don't see him as a positive offensive asset just yet, these are all very good signs for a player who had almost no offensive game just 2 seasons ago. What I like the most about his offensive improvements this season is that he's attacking more in transition, with transition plays making up about 1/5 of his scoring diet. With the height of a center, but the agility of a guard, I think fast break scoring is an area that plays to Isaac's natural strengths the most. And if he can just polish his half-court skills, maybe by developing a post hook or working on his handles, he could create huge mismatches on offense. round out this list, I have another member of the 1+ steals, 1+ blocks club, and that's Richaun Holmes. Holmes' impact on the game is felt on offense, defense, and on the boards, as the Sacramento Kings are 7.8 points per 100 possessions better with him on the court prior to his injury. While he's had his handful of 20-point outings this season, Holmes' contribution on offense isn't that of volume scoring. However, he's a scorer of extreme efficiency. Richaun Holmes ranks 8th in the entire NBA with a 68.5% true shooting percentage. He has one of the best touches around the rim in the league, whether that's an off-the-glass finish off a drive or a floater from 10 feet out. Holmes thrives in the pick and roll, as a third of his scoring diet comes as the roll man, where he's converting shots at a 65.3% clip. That ranks second best amongst all players with at least 3 roll man possessions per game. Richaun Holmes also excels at keeping possessions alive. He has an amazing motor and is always engaged when a shot goes up. While his shot creating repertoire is quite limited, in a way, he can create his own shots just by cleaning the offensive glass. He's 14th in the NBA in offensive rebounds per game and 11th in the NBA in effective field goal percentage on putback attempts. Richaun Holmes' finishing and rebounding makes him a game changer on offense for the Kings. In fact, Sacramento's offensive rating with him off the floor is a horrific 99.9. On the defensive end, Holmes is a very versatile defender, much like Tice, Jang, and Isaac. While the best area of his defense is guarding the paint, where he holds opponents to 6.6% worse shooting within 6 feet of the basket, he's also capable of holding his own against quicker defenders. Opponents are shooting 3.5% worse when guarded by Holmes outside of 15 feet from the basket. Once again, this is an area where many big men get burnt by quicker opponents, so Holmes' ability to defend on the perimeter is commendable. Catch-all advanced metrics corroborate these findings, ranking Holmes as an above-average defender.